Well, welcome to Family Hour here on the YAHOWAH blog. We have quite a cast of characters. We have up there in the very top, that is Sir Shorts. His name is Kevin. He has now moved out of my pool, which is kind of nice. After the rain, it probably is chilly in the pool, but now you're in my study. In fact, I think you're in Leia's chair. But nonetheless, it's nice to have you in my
get out of my chair, sir.
Yeah, Captain Kirk. Also great to have you. How are things in the People's Republic?
That's good. It's good. The communists are everywhere, but what the heck?
Yeah. Have you actually seen the sun the last week? He lives in Carmel.
No, not really.
Not really. And JB, what is that you have behind you? It looks like something intelligent. Is that amplified translation?
Yeah, Hosha 4.6.
Hosha 4.6. Okay. Well,
keep it as my desktop background. It's a good reminder.
It is a good reminder. It's basically that God's people are destroyed for lack of knowing.
Yep.
In fact, I want to speak a little bit about that. We all have Leah, very fancy trousers you have there, Leah. And you got the Wookiee. The Wookiee has a Craig shirt on. That's always appropriate, looking stylish for their Wookiee pal.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Yep. And how are you there, Rich?
Good.
There is the handsome Rich, the keeper of the cables over there. Yep. We have a full cast of characters. I do want to speak a little bit about your desktop, Hosha 4.6. It is my contention that we are witnessing the demise of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Just as Israel was formed when, after a very long time out for bad behavior, the children of Israel were finally allowed into the promised land. And I think Israel was formed really long after, if you want to look at it as a country, it was formed long after Jacob bore the name Yisrael, which would have, been around 1900-ish BCE, because there was no country. They were living there in the promised land, but they didn't live there very long, and they very quickly migrated into Egypt, and they were guests of Egypt for quite some time before they became slaves in Egypt. And in the last 80 years, they were, of course, slaves. And then Yahweh led them out, and it wasn't until 40 years thereafter, because they were so obnoxious, that God just says, "No, I'm not taking in like this." And when the spies all came back with a negative report, he says, "So everybody over 40, you're just going to be a pile of corpses. So you aren't going in." And along the way, Moshe even said, "I want you to kill me, God. These people are impossible. I can't go forward." And Moshe actually never got them into the promised land. He got them to the border, and Yoshua ben Nun got them in. He didn't do very well with them. They didn't pay much attention to anything God had to say. So I don't think you really can count as a nation of Israel until they first unified as a Goyim people. And that would be under King Saul.
Yeah.
Under King Saul, they deliberately said they wanted to be like the Goy. That was a really bad idea. Mm-hmm. And they chose King Saul because he was big, tall, handsome, and they thought he was a really good guy.
They chose politics.
Yeah, they turned out to be a scoundrel. And he got literally
demon-possessed.
Yeah, he got his head handed to him, literally. That didn't work out very well. And then for the first time, really, Yisrael as a nation was unified under King David. Mm-hmm. Yahweh's chosen one, his beloved son, the Messiah. And he did a marvelous job of defending Yisrael. He brought them into Jerusalem as the capital. He acquired the Temple Mount. He built the city of Dod. He marked the what is called Zion, the signs along the way. He became a master linguist and prophet, having written 100 songs and proverbs. Just an extraordinary life well lived. And he did unify Israel, but boy, it didn't even last his lifetime, did it? No, they rebelled against him, his own son, Absalom. And it says all of the men of Israel, that couldn't have been quite all, but darn near, rebelled against him. So you can't claim that was a unified Israel, I don't think, can you?
No.
So very brief time under Dowd, maybe 30 years at most. Israel was a united people.
A flash of a moment in time.
Yep, and they were briefly united under Solomon. And Solomon started out great. I mean, personally, I'm partial to his Sermon on the Mount, his Towrah message, where he introduced the Nakri to the world.
Very eloquent.
Yeah, it was really an amazing speech, one of the most important prophecies ever uttered. I wish more people understood it so that we could get Israel's attention. But he unfortunately became very religious. And he began to pander to the gods of his wives and concubines. And Israel did not survive much long after his death. It was very quickly crumbled. And from that time, there has not been an Israel.
Yeah.
Really. There was a
political Israel, maybe.
There was a Yahud for a good while until the Babylonians decided that wasn't something they wanted. And so Babylonians took care of that. And then there was briefly a Yahud after that. And then the Greeks came a-calling, and they took away the liberty. And then the Romans took away the liberty that the Greeks had taken away. And then the Roman Catholics took away the liberty that the Imperial Romans had taken away. And after the Imperial or the Roman Catholics, you're dealing then with the Byzantines, and they didn't give autonomy to Israel or even to Judea. And then you had the first Muslims that perpetrated genocide on every Jew they could find. So that worked really well. That's when they came in and built the Dome of the Hoofy Print and the Dome of or the Mosque Alaska, based upon the wild asteroid. One of the great farces of all time. You look after that, and you've got the Ottomans, which was this mix of Islam and the Mongols, and they were ruthless. And then the Crusaders tried to take it over, and they were no better. And then finally, you have Jews no longer living in the land, not a significant number of them anyway, and that was followed by the European persecution and the pogroms, and that turned into the Roman Catholic, Nazi, and Muslim Holocaust. And it was only after that Israel became a state again. So Israel doesn't really have much of a history in the land, does it?
Not much.
No, really not much. It's under Dowd, somewhere around 1020 BCE,
right?
For about 30 years, about 20, 30 years of being a kingdom of Israel under Solomon, and then Israel's gone. And what you've got is Judea for a while, and then you don't have Israel again until 1948. And of course, in 1948, the Muslims tried to perpetrate genocide on Jews. They tried to recreate what Muhammad did in Arabia.
Yeah.
And then they tried to do it again and lost in 1967. And then they tried to do it again and lost in 1973. And that didn't work, so they created the myth of the Palestinians and the PLO. to terrorize Jews into submission, and that didn't work either. But then they came up with a plan in 2023 that it pains me to admit, and this is the thing I really wanted to talk about here. And the reason we were even discussing this, fellas and lady, is that our mission is to advance Yahweh's ambition. Yahweh wants his people to recognize and accept his name. He wants his people to recognize and accept his beloved son, David, who is the Messiah, our Savior, his son, and the returning king. And he wants his people to come back home, to stop being religious, to stop being political, and to return to him. And that is our mission. That is what God has asked us to do. And when you recognize that Israel's on the cusp of its destruction, that sounds rough, but that is where Israel is. And we're going to explain why that is the case. And I'm sorry to bring this to you. It's late in the night on the Shabbat in Israel. So this is not the news you want to hear, but I can't overemphasize how just essential this message is. I'm going to tell you something that no one else has ever told you before. And feel free to interject as we go along. Israel was played as a fool by fools.
Yeah.
That is tragic because the average Israeli IQ is 115. And those who played them for fools have an average IQ of about 70. So it shouldn't have been possible. But it happened. And we can't make the conclusion, can't form the conclusion that intelligence has done Israel any good.
Yeah.
No.
Because what we read about Israel, during the birth of the covenant with Abraham, Yishak, Jacob, and the 12 sons, is really pretty abysmal. There's very few highlights and lots of lowlights.
Yes.
They were horrible. And it becomes really, really bad during the Exodus. I mean, there is no bright spot during the Exodus. I don't think there's a bright spot. What was there that was good? It's just one miserable event after another. And Jews, you were despicable during the entire time. Obnoxious. And so intelligence didn't do you a darn bit of good. You were full of yourselves. And ever since that time, you've tried to outsmart God with your goddamn religion. And it has continued to separate you from God. And here you have Yahweh saying in the book of Hosea that you are destroying yourself because, well, you're stupid. Would that be a reasonable?
Yes. Religion and politics. Oh, yeah. Religion and politics make you stupid.
Would be to say that you can't process information at a reasonable pace. And God actually didn't say his people were stupid. He said they're ignorant.
Yeah.
It is for lack of knowing.
No,
that you
yes.
have yourself.
That word is Yada.
And the problem Israel has is that they have emphasized knowing things that are untrue. So it's not just that they had no knowledge, it's the things that they chose to know and to convey were mostly untrue, if not almost all untrue. You know, every day I go in to the feed of my Facebook account, and I pick out the first 10 stories from rabbis. Just utterly obnoxious. I mean, it's so
really
stupid.
retarded, yeah.
It's so stupid. It makes you want to scream.
Yeah.
And I post them with very little commentary because I want people to listen just to how utterly ridiculous Judaism is. It is so obnoxious to God. Here they are celebrating the damn end of the year, so they can start Rosh Hashanah and the high holy days. And you just want to go, what in the hell is wrong with you? How could you be? No, I would use stupid.
A Babylonian New Year. Yeah.
Babylonian New
A
Year.
Babylonian New Year. Yeah.
Yeah, Babylonian New Year.
Well, yeah, it's tradition.
Yeah, and they're not celebrating it because they hate it because, well, it's the time that they have to fool Satan
Yeah.
so that he doesn't accuse them. And the rabbis are all about this is how you do that.
Yep.
And then they're miserable because they have to go into a time of affliction, of twirling chickens over their head and abasing their souls.
What a waste of a chicken.
What an utter waste of a life.
Mm.
Yeah.
JB, do you ever consider the what Yahowah had to say about the first of the year?
No,
What do you have to say about the first of the year?
I can't think of anything.
It's a bead.
Abib.
Yeah,
It's a bead.
yeah,
Yeah.
you start counting for Passover.
Yeah, Abib. Is Abib in the seventh month?
No,
By the way, can the seventh month be the end of the year or the beginning of the year? Is there any year that only has 7 months? Would it have to have 6 months? Because the seventh they're claiming is the new year. So I don't know how that works if the seventh month is the new year, but nonetheless,
You gotta believe.
they'd be dumb enough to believe, and they believe that they're in a year that it's 100 and they're 197 years off from God's calendar,
That's true.
and it's obvious they're 197 years off. So, because Jews don't know what we've come to know about God, the nation is on the cusp of its destruction, and we can't seem to get Israel's attention. On our goal here is we want 70 Israelites, Jews in Israel, to listen to what God has to say and to be the single most important voices in the history of that nation. And if you don't respond really quickly, there's going to be no nation to respond to. And let me tell you what I mean. On 10/7 of 23, I began a letter that turned out to be 150, 200 pages. It's a long letter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called At War with Religion. And what I did is I explained the nature of the attack and who perpetrated it, and it had nothing to do with Hamas.
Yeah.
Alaska Flood is a title from the Quran, and it was perpetrated, financed, orchestrated, and perpetrated by Muslims. The majority of those who crossed over the border were not Hamas. They were just good Muslims.
Citizens.
Their intent on Alaska Flood was not to perpetrate genocide in Israel.
Yeah. What enough?
Their intent was not to conquer Israel. Their intent wasn't to claim that this is their breakout moment and that they're going to be able to move the borders of Gaza eastward, and they were going to claim the southern part of Israel. That wasn't their intent either. And you would have thought that somewhere along the way, some smart person, they got a Mossad, they have a Shin Bet. You'd think that there'd be some smart person in Israel that was, gee, why did they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why were they motivated to commit rape? Why were they motivated to dissect and torture children?
To be heinous.
Why were they motivated to kidnap grandmas? Heck, they kidnapped dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
To draw her in.
Why did they slaughter people at a dance that had nothing to do with them?
Yeah.
Why did they go into a kibbutz, kibbutzim, that where the most liberal of Jews were, who were the most accepting of them?
Right. Right.
Why did they do that?
To draw her in.
Yeah.
Provoke a response.
They did that because they were baiting Israel to do what Israel did. They wanted Israel to go into Gaza and to destroy it. And they knew that if they bludgeoned Israel to that extent, Israel would go into Gaza and would destroy it. Now you say, well, why would Muslims in Gaza want Jews to go in and destroy their homes?
They do what they're told.
Because their goal of Islam has always been the eradication of all humankind, beginning with Jews.
Yeah, for them it was martyrdom.
It was
Free brothel in heaven.
Yeah, it was more than just martyrdom. It was martyrdom in the Great Jihad.
Mm-hmm.
It was martyrdom that would lead to the destruction of Israel.
Yeah.
Because if they could get Israel baited by being so heinous on 10/7 to therefore invade Israel with this mission to eradicate Hamas, there was a 0% chance that Israel would prevail.
Right.
And a very high likelihood that Israel would be destroyed.
Yep.
And that is precisely what has happened and will happen. What do I mean by that? On that week of 10/7 of 23, and that letter, I predicted, and we talked about it on this program, that Israel would be lured into invading Gaza, and I begged Israel not to do so. I said, Israel, if you invade Gaza and you use bullets and bombs with the intent of taking out Hamas, you will fail, and in the process, you will destroy yourself. And what I explained is that you cannot win a religious conflict with bullets and bombs, particularly with a religion that celebrates death, where the highest calling, according to the Quran, for a Muslim is to die killing for Allah.
Yep.
You see, the Quran orders all Muslims to fight and kill for Allah. Quran says specifically that a Muslim must never retreat and must never surrender. That if a Muslim retreats or surrender, Allah will personally take that Muslim into the worst places of hell and torture them forever. So a Muslim cannot retreat. They cannot surrender. Hamas is Muslim. Gaza is all Muslim. And so there was no chance whatsoever that Hamas was ever going to surrender, or any Muslim was going to surrender in terms of the good. If they have somebody that's, they're surrendering, they aren't Hamas. You can say they're anything else, but those are crappy Muslims if they're surrendering.
The Quran orders the good Muslims to kill them first.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, he does.
Allah calls Muslims who surrender hypocrites. They cease to be Muslims, and Allah calls them out to condemn them, saying he's going to torture them forever in hell. So you cannot be a peaceful Muslim. You cannot be a Muslim who surrenders. The moment you surrender, you cease to be a Muslim.
No such thing as moderate.
So there is no way that Israel could have gone into Gaza and defeated Hamas, killed Hamas, obliterated Hamas, or got Hamas to lay down their weapons and surrender. Zero. You could do this 1,000 different ways for 1,000 years, and you will never succeed with those goals, ever. And if you go into a war that has zero chance of success, you will always fail. Israel failed. And what I said is, if they do this, they will manufacture more jihadists than they kill, which is precisely what's happened. You look at those food convoys, the jihadists that are armed in black and sitting on top of them are like ants on sugar. There are as many, if not more, armed jihadists in Gaza now than they were 715 days ago when Israel began this conflict. So they lost. It did not work. It failed miserably, as I foretold. Because why would I foretell that? Because I don't think there's anybody on the planet that understands Islam as well as I do. You know, when you write 5 volumes like this, you're the first to set the Quran in chronological order. And you use the Islamic hadith, particularly Tabari and Ishaq, the 2 chronological presentations of hadith, which would be reports from Muhammad and his followers. And by the way, the hadith and the Quran come from exactly the same lips, passed on exactly the same way. There's really no difference in hadith and Quran in terms of their authenticity. And so I was the first to put the Quran in chronological order and set it into the context of Muhammad's life, and went through every Quran surah to explain exactly what Islam is. So I knew the religion probably better than anybody alive. And I was able to make many conclusions about what would happen in Gaza when Israel did as I had foretold, invaded it using bullets and bombs. And that is precisely what has happened. And so Israel has made a very bad situation in Gaza much worse. And they've lost, they're going to soon be at 1,000 soldiers lost. And that's not the end of it. It's not just that Israel went into Gaza, destroyed Gaza, killed some 50,000 plus people. Now, when you realize that 4,000 Gazan Muslims perpetrated 10/7, and Israel at the very least has killed 50,000, what percentage of the perpetrators are represented in that 50,000 at the absolute most?
It could be more about 1%.
Yeah, 9%.
That much.
If they got all of them, if they got every single one of the perpetrators, it is impossible for Israel to have made of those 50,000 any more than 9%, the actual perpetrators. Now, it doesn't mean that other Gazan Muslims are innocent. I don't think there's even 5% of Gazans who didn't celebrate and aid, abet 10/7, or
Enjoy
it, encourage it, celebrate it, help harbor and torture the abductees, and provide the next generation of jihadists. So I don't think there is an innocent Gazan Muslim. Islam is complicit in this crime. But nonetheless, you've got at least if the number is only 50,000, and I don't think there's anybody that believes that's the number, that almost everyone would acknowledge that it's higher than that. It means that at least 46,000 didn't actually participate in 10/7. And the world knows this. And the world sees the images of Israel blowing up building after building. And when it was already to the point where the world was screaming and saying, Israel, this is wrong, Netanyahu doubled down and then decided, I'm going to go back in after he had come out, and then went into Gaza City and is now leveling building after building, apartment after apartment, home after home in Gaza City. No, I'm not here defending Muslims. I understand the religion perpetrated the most heinous crime in modern history. But Israel, you're not doing anybody any favors, including yourself, by destroying the habitat of Gaza. Because what do you got now? You got a bunch of people living in tents with the world sympathizing for them. And you're forced to feed the people that want to kill you. I mean, how can you get yourself in a worse situation that you're forced to feed the people who are devoted to killing you? And where there are no fewer jihadists now than there were previously, and you've managed to take the entire world and turn it against you. And at this point, you only have this thinnest thread that is a viable link to anyone that can be of any assistance to you, and that thread is about to break. and will break. It's inevitable. It's imminent. It's inevitable. Israel has turned all of Europe against it. European companies don't want to do business with them anymore. They want to supply weapons. They won't want to buy anything from Israel. They don't want to sell anything to Israel. And they're clamoring to establish a Muslim state to appease the oil-rich thugs that run the Middle East.
Yeah, it's the United States veto power is the only thing that is stopping anything right now. And we know that Trump's mind, well, once he has, I'm the guy that set it all up and put it together so I get the peace prize. Once he gets the acclaim for it, you know that's going away. He's just trying to set the pieces up so that he gets the acclaim for it. And then that veto power goes, okay, well, we've got it all settled now. Yeah, but once that goes away, that's the only thread they've got.
And let's talk about the United States, then we'll talk about Trump, because there's really no message more important for Israel to understand, because it's over for Israel. The nation of Israel is a Jewish state. It's over. Even if they were to accept the 5-point plan that I presented to them on the week of 10/7 of 23 now, which they're not going to do. If they did it, it's over. There is no recovering from the damage they have done. Okay, before we go into the United States, is Israel's only supply line, the only source of weapons that they are, and the bombs that they're using. Israel did more than destroy Gaza. Israel went to war and invaded Lebanon.
And Iran.
I despise Hezbollah. Hezbollah had it coming, but nonetheless, they did that thing, didn't they? They invaded Lebanon, and they killed a lot of political and religious leaders in Lebanon. Caused a lot of damage in Lebanon, including
in some
in
very
Beirut.
unique ways.
Israel has been bombing and occupying parts of Syria, have they not?
Yes, they have.
Iran.
And yet
Yemen.
Israel's Mossad was part of the regime change that the United States sponsored to oust Assad, so that Syria would stop buying Russian weapons and would start buying American weapons and would be dependent upon the West. And of course, that brought in the Islamic State. That was
rebranded terrorists.
That was Israel's strategy as well. But so they've got blood on their hands all over the place in Syria, do they not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Israel bombed Iran. And matter of fact, Israel was probably 2 weeks away from its destruction if that war continued.
Yeah.
And by bombing Iran, Israel did something that we witnessed the consequence of this week with the ambassador to China lambasting Israel. And he just says, no, what you've done in Gaza is despicable. It's deplorable. There is no excuse for it. And I've never seen a Chinese diplomat that harsh. But he's not actually motivated by what happened in Gaza.
No.
He's motivated by what happened in Iran, because Iran is essential to China because of the supply of gas and oil and the pipelines that come out of there. And so when Israel started bombing Iran, pushing for regime change in Iran, they were robbing China of one of its most important allies and doing the same thing to Russia. And at this point, the most viable fighting force in the world is Russia. They're beating NATO and the United States in Ukraine badly. And heck, the United States can't even beat the Houthis. Okay, and Russia is beating the United States and the EU and NATO
Everybody wants to go in.
readily. And they turned both Russia, who has great relations with Iran, and China against them. Now, you take those two countries, and BRICS right now represent the monetary and the industrial engine of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And unbelievably stupid, and there was no chance to prevail. It's talking about a country that's 20 times the size. I don't know what the population difference is, but something around 90 million versus 7 million Jews, more than 20 times the population difference. There was nothing they could do. You're not going to bomb a country into regime change. It's never happened. That's not how regime change happens. And there's never been a case of regime change in the Middle East that has turned out favorably. They all turn out far worse.
Yes.
I want to tell you, Gaddafi was better than what we replaced him with. The thugs that run Iraq now are far worse than was Saddam Hussein. Assad was not as bad as the Islamic State. Regime change just doesn't work. Never worked. It's a stupid idea. But so where are we? I mean, they were getting pummeled by the Iranians, and I'm afraid, because Netanyahu has to know that he's lost the Gaza war. That he could continue to bomb it into oblivion, which he's going to do because he can't admit defeat. Because if he admit defeats, he's out on his butt. And so he continues the Gaza war, but the Gaza war can only be continued a month or two. He needs a new war. If he doesn't get a new war, he's out on his butt. And so where's his new war going to be? Where his old war was. He's going to go back and start bombing Iran again. And this time, Israel is going to be annihilated. That's just the way it's going to be. Iran is too formidable. Heck, the United States couldn't defeat Afghanistan. How in the hell is Israel going to defeat Iran? It's not possible. Particularly with Iran having China and Russia as her allies. And then, if that wasn't enough, Israel bombed the Houthis. Bombing the Houthis does nothing. Literally does nothing. They celebrate death. Oh, okay, you killed 10 leaders of the Houthis. What's that? 7 brain cells? I mean, what's the collective IQ of 10 Houthis? Seriously.
600.
600.
I don't think so. I think the average IQ of Houthiville is in the 50s.
Okay.
So so you're giving him too much credit.
Well, that's gotta be nice.
Okay, so it makes Israel feel great. The Houthis are sending bombs in, but the Houthis have actually shut off Asian trade from Israel, because that used to come in through the Gulf of Aqaba, and that port's now closed, and there is no shipping into Israel from there. They shut it down, and the Iranians damn near destroyed Haifa on the other side. So they're bombing the Houthis, and then they decided that, okay, we're going to bomb Qatar. Now, nobody can stand Hamas, but you've got to be smart enough to know that Qatar owns the one man that is still supplying you with bombs, Trump. And even if you coordinated the bombing of Qatar with Trump, he's going to deny it. And he's going to turn on you because, he's received between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, about $16 billion in bribes? So then you bomb Qatar. And what you've done is now you've unified Islamic nations against you. You now have a NATO of Islam. And they're not, futzing around with weapons. They have far more, I think about 20 times more money invested in U.S. weapons than Israel does. And you add that to what is in Turkey. Not looking good. And where do you think the U.S. is going to stand if Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Turkey go to war with Israel? Whose side do you think the United States is going to be?
Saudi Arabia. They have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it.
The dollar depends on it.
That is correct.
And Turkey's NATO. Turkey is NATO.
Turkey is Saudi Arabia is the only reason the U.S. Economy is still afloat, because of the petrodollar. And so the United States already has signed a defense agreement with Saudi Arabia. Trump did that.
Right.
And Trump has never signed, America has never signed a defense agreement with Israel. And so you've got Israel bombing, 5 countries, plus bombing Gaza into oblivion. And the world's just had it. Now, you can say, well, the world had it with Israel previously. Well, there's a difference. They weren't overtly clamoring for an Islamic State to be carved out of Israel's heart. They weren't boycotting Israel. And they are now. Mm-hmm. And they're openly condemning Israel. So now let's look at the United States. The Democratic Party has definitely turned on Israel. It's less than 10% of empowered elected Democrats support Israel. So that's about as extreme as you can be. Among MAGAs are very, very quickly turning against Israel. But MAGAs under 40, Republicans under 40, are as anti-Israel as are Democrats. The whole fuss over Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was bribed big money, big money, to say nice things about Israel. He was in it for the money, he was bribed, and he said nice things about Israel until he didn't. And he joined the likes of Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, and his buddy, Tucker Carlson. And he started saying horrible things about Israel. Really revolting things about Israel.
Well, aren't they foaming at the mouth anti-Semites?
Well, I wouldn't say the other three are foaming at the mouth of anti-Semites. But Charlie Kirk was the last hope to hang on to an influencer for young Republicans that could keep that door at least partially open so that Israel would have at least some base that survived in American politics. And he turned on him. Absolutely and unequivocally turned on him. He may have turned on him for a number of different reasons, but the most likely is the same reason that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson did.
Yeah.
The Qataris have much deeper pockets.
They got paid more.
And they own Trump. And all of these people are political hacks for MAGA and Trump. But when Charlie Kirk turned against Israel, that was it for Israel. There was no other influencer of any stature that was now supporting Israel with the young under 40s in America. So now you've got the leadership of MAGA anti-Israel. You've got the youth of the Republican Party anti-Israel, and you have the Democrats anti-Israel. How long do you think that Trump is going to be pro-Israel? He's a political.
No, he has to leave.
Having received $16 billion from United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, how long do you think that Trump is going to continue to support Israel?
Almost.
And if I may be so bold, and I don't think Trump is this smart, but I do think that there are those that are smart enough, not in his administration, but kind of the overlords of the administration, if you will.
The entourage,
yeah. It's typically called the military-industrial complex, but it's bigger than that. Yeah. It's these mega financiers, bankers, and the like that have so much influence. You know, a guy like Elon Musk, because of X and his billions, have huge influence.
Sure.
Larry Ellison would be in that same boat. Of course, the guys from Blackstone would be in that same boat. There are many of them that have enormous clout, and they want more influence where there's money, which is the Islamic countries because of the oil, not Israel. And Israel is a impediment for them having the kind of relationship they want in terms of they want to take over Iran. So they'll be happy to help Israel bomb Iran knowing that Israel will get destroyed in the process, but a weaker Iran is what they want. That they're the ones who wanted NATO to weaken Russia so that Russia was torn apart because of the natural resources in Russia. So there is a group of people who want war and who will sacrifice millions of lives to enrich themselves. And it is that group that has tremendous influence, such that I'm convinced that JFK, John Kennedy, was actually killed because he stepped outside the lines of what they thought would be acceptable. They wanted war in places he didn't want to go to war. He wanted a dollar that was backed by gold, and they didn't want that. There were all sorts of things that he opposed that they wanted, and they killed him. And I think that every president knows that you step outside that line, you're a dead man. They will kill you. Trump is a narcissist. He's not going to take that risk. But mostly, Trump is a serial hater. He turns on everybody given a chance. So if he is your only ally, you have no ally. But most importantly, we have learned from the prophets that it's the United States that betrays Israel in the end. And the prophets were very explicit about the nature of the character that would be the great betrayer of Israel. And it is overwhelmingly obvious it's Donald Trump. So now Israel's only thin thread of salvation, of having military weaponry and the money to continue to wage war, is the devil incarnate who wants Israel destroyed. So if you were smart, now Trump isn't, but
No.
if you're one of the ones that are pulling Trump's strings and you're smart, what are you going to do with Israel at this time? Are you going to say, Israel, you get no more weapons? Or are you going to say, here, Israel, here's all the weapons you want?
Yeah.
What would the choice be, and why would you make that choice? Because it's not obvious to anybody in Israel.
Give them all the weapons, let them hang themselves.
Correct.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because if you continue to give them weapons, they will continue to bomb Gaza into oblivion, and they will bury themselves. And if you continue to give them weapons, Netanyahu is not going to say, okay, so I was wrong. My plan against Gaza didn't work. We're done.
He's not the type to walk away.
He's going to go and attack Iran again, or Syria, or some other place.
Yeah.
And you know how that's going to turn out. So what you do is, if you wanted to set Israel up such that Israel is gone and now you can do whatever you want to in the Islamic world, you give them more weapons.
Flood the
You
place
don't
with weapons.
Flood
Sure.
the place with weapons. Give
Yeah.
the man everything he needs
Yeah.
to completely obliterate Gaza and go to war beyond Gaza, and either Yemen and Houthiville, or in Syria, which would draw in the Turks, a NATO country, or in Iran. That's what you would do, and that's what's happening. That's why Israelis are in love with Trump and say, look what he's given us. But Israel came out just yesterday, Netanyahu did, and said, I have this new strategy. We're going to make all of our own weapons in-house. So if we're constrained by the world, we're going to have our own weapons industry. I'm telling you, Israel is very inventive, and they have some coin.
They don't have the natural resources
But
to
they
pull
don't.
it off.
They have no natural resources, and they're already bled dry by an economy where
A war
the most
economy.
productive people are out being playing soldier and getting killed.
Yeah. Right.
And so they're financially they're essentially bankrupt, and they do not have the wherewithal to develop that kind of industry. The United States is going bankrupt trying to do it. To their credit, the Russians and Chinese figured out a way to actually be pragmatic in building a military that makes sense. The United States doesn't have a clue how to do it. And Israel is convinced that their weapons are going to prevail. Where? What was 10-7? Was 10-7 a war where tanks and attack helicopters and gunships and F-35s and F-15s and submarines and all that kind of? Was there any use of any of that?
No.
Bicycles and wheelbarrows and gun knows.
Not a bit. And
There isn't an army in the world that can stop jihadists.
Well, let's just put that aside for a moment. Israel failed miserably on 10-7 with 4,000 jihadists. I mean, failed miserably. The jihadists kept on coming in wave after wave for a day. And Israel never once stopped them and never once intervened to keep them from hauling Jewish abductees back into Gaza. True. They were completely and totally inept. True. And there were 4,000 of them, almost all of them on foot. And they couldn't do it. What's going to happen when that's not 4,000 but 4 million? Mm-hmm. They're having a prayer. That's what the prophets are describing. They're saying that the number of jihadists come 2027 that are going to infiltrate into Israel, with most of them coming from inside Israel because there will be an Islamic State by that point. And they'll come from Egypt, and they're going to come from Saudi Arabia, and they're going to come from Turkey and from Syria and from Lebanon. They're going to come from Iraq. They're going to come from Iran. They're going to come from Jordan. They're going to come from Pakistan. There are going to be 4 million of them. And all the while, you're going to have Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Egypt all engaged militarily attacking Israel's cities. And they're going to launch more drones and more missiles than Israel has interceptors. And those cities are going to be destroyed, and the power plants will be destroyed. And there'll be no way to fight those fires. There'll be no way to protect the people. And the large cities will be ablaze, and all the smaller communities will be ransacked with jihadists. That is what the prophets have foretold. It is Alaska flood times 1,000. And the IDF will be completely and utterly useless. And the United States will side with the Muslims. And the rest of the world will too, as will China and Russia. It's checkmate. It's over. There is no situation now where Israel survives without Yahweh finally intervening on the 24th of September on Towrah, a day that the Jews don't even know what day that is.
Nope.
First day of the 7th month, and it's Towrah. And they think it's the first day of the year at Rosh Hashanah, but I'm not sure there'll be a functioning rabbi to tell them anything by that time. But it is Yahweh who will intervene on Towrah, and he will wipe out those foes. And Israel will only survive because there will be a remnant of Israel that will survive because of what we collectively do on their behalf. But other than that, Israel's gone. I'm not sounding the alarm. I'm just telling you the truth. Israel's gone. Israel. And I've been begging Israel to listen to this, telling that Israel that you're in love with Donald Trump and he's the great betrayer. Mm-hmm. That he is literally demon-possessed with Satan. That by continuing to bomb Gaza, you've turned the entire world against you, and you cannot survive that without Yahweh. And you do not have Yahweh because you told him to go away and shut up. You didn't want to hear from him and see it from him again. And all you've done is gotten more belligerent since that time.
Yes, but Yahweh has a remedy. He says, I got a guy.
He does have a remedy, but that remedy...
His name is Yada.
But that remedy...
Yeah,
2 guys. And really he's got 3 because that's his real guy.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 guys, work on behalf of the real guy. And that's good. But the fact is, we communicate the message in that last 3.5 years from the Temple Mount.
Yep.
But we don't stop the war. Yahweh stops the war.
Yeah.
And by the time he stops the war, there are not a lot of Jews left. And so I wanted to share all of this. And I wanted to also say that something in me just triggered. The moment that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and it's not because I knew Charlie Kirk. I had never, ever listened to anything he had to say. I didn't know him from Adam. But when the world was so, fussy about him, I listened to maybe 100 of his interviews, particularly the last 3 or 4 months. And what I learned was that he had turned on Israel. And it's undeniable. He turned on Israel. And then I heard Israel saying, he's our best guy and we love him, and, shrines to and parks named after Charlie. And he's just saying, pathetic Israel. Are you so desperate for a friend that you'll take a man that is undermining you and turning into the next Nick Fuentes, and you're going to call him your friend because you're desperate for friends? But what I knew at that moment, and tried to position all over Facebook and on X, is this is the fulcrum. This is the watershed moment. His death is going to be used, I had assumed, and now we're witnessing it, as the great unveiling of anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm.
In the wake of his death, anti-Semitic posts on Facebook and X have grown exponentially. It's not an increase like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. All those numbers would be big. No, it's tenfold, 100-fold. The shrill voices against Israel are dominant on X and Facebook.
And popular.
Oh, exceedingly popular. And they're saying exceedingly vile things about Israel. And so this was the watershed moment. It turned out to be that unleashed what was not so much covert, but wasn't so popular that it was the number one theme in social media. And social media has a tremendous influence. It was the other part that I wanted to convey is that, and I keep on saying this, and I'm going to continue to emphasize it. I don't know if it's resonating with anybody, but Tyler Robinson, the young boy that took Charlie Cook's life, or so we're told, is the boy next door. He is not a radical leftist. He was not a MAGA Christian either. His family was. He was not indoctrinated at a university. He went for one semester, and he was in engineering of all things, which is the least political of all majors, and a school that, filled with Mormons in Utah. And it was one semester. No, he wasn't indoctrinated at school. Although that's what the right wants you to believe. And they want you to believe that he became a leftist because mommy says he became, a leftist. Well, no, mommy wants you to not hate her. And she wants to distance her religion, Mormonism, and her politics, MAGA, from the murder. So she claims, I have nothing to do with it. We raised him right and he became wrong.
Oh my God. The red hats are like a goddamn cult.
Good. It's just disgusting. And then you read what the FBI has published that he said in his confession as he was talking to his roommate. And first of all, you have to say, all right, you want to make a case against the kid. Why in the hell are you releasing that? Why would you do that? I mean, you have so poisoned now your evidence that you can't even use it in a trial.
A defense attorney is going to have field day
unless you're trying to make a case when the case doesn't exist.
Right.
And JB, you'd be the youngest of us. The rest of us are are just shy of 400.
Old.
We're old. Yeah, the rest of us are old.
Just shy of old.
Yeah, we're rest of us. Leia's not, but Rich isn't either. Rich isn't either. So,
in my mind, I'm
right.
still 35.
I did not grow up in the era of video games. That's how old I am. My sons did, and I saw what video games did to them. Those first-person shooter games are vile.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a very unrealistic view of what's appropriate in life. And they've gotten more realistic, and they've gotten more vile. But before I talk about that, I would like just to ask a question. Have any of the 5 of you read what the FBI put out, which was the text messages between Tyler and his roommate?
I thought he said that he told him he was the one who shot him or something, but I just read the blurb.
He admitted that he shot him. He told their roommate to erase all the text messages and tell no one. He talked about his grandpa's rifle and how his old man's going to be upset because he left the old man's his grandpa's rifle in the field and he's trying to go back and get it, and he sees a police car there and he doesn't want the police car to get him, and he talks about the memes that he wrote on the shell casings, and so he's got a full confession. He's got the evidence. Yeah, that's the gun. That's where it is. That's where I left it. And yeah, it's my grandpa's. And oh, by the way, yes, I'm the one that wrote those the gaming memes on the bullets. And yep, it was me. I did it. And oh, by the way, this is where I am. Come get me. Oh, but I don't want to get caught. But yep, I'm confessing to the crime. And it was all presented in full sentences without a single acronym.
Oh.
Was it AI?
If you were to put that into, I'm not a fan of AI, but there are people that like them. If you were, and people have now, they have fed that text stream that the FBI said this is what he wrote into an AI search engine and said, is this the words of a 22-year-old gamer? What are the likelihood that a 22-year-old gamer wrote these words? And they all said, none. It's not how they write. It might be somebody in the FBI that's my age that, when was the last time people wrote in full sentences or spoke in full sentences?
Yeah.
Certainly the president of the United States can't do it, and he's older than I am.
Okay, so this kid was Gen Alpha, and they have their own language.
Yes,
They do. They do.
And he did not use it.
Nope.
Now, so you have to say, what are they trying to pull off on us here?
Ooh.
Yeah. Why don't you see the rifle going up the stairs? Why don't you see the rifle coming down off the building? How did he disassemble it and assemble it? And I've seen people do it that are really good with steady hands in a quiet room. But you are about ready to kill somebody, and or you've just done so. I'm going to tell you, you aren't handling those tools in a way that you can do that. And even when you do it, the pieces are still this big, and your backpack's this tall.
Unless you're a professional.
So, and he's not.
Right.
Not. So, we're just dealing with some really weird stuff here. Now, I'm not saying the kid didn't do it because
we weren't there.
Because no, my concern over our mission, because my whole focus, fellas, ladies, is our mission. Mm-hmm. God gave us a mission, and we're going to do our best to achieve this mission, but I want God to know what we're up against, as if, of course he does know. But I've said, I can't reach anyone under 30 years old. Well, anyone, maybe that's a slight statement because there are some remarkable young men that are even in our covenant, but they're in our covenant because of their dad or their mom, and because they're really exceptional. But for the most part, anyone under 35, 40 years old, I can't reach anymore because I'm in the same situation that Yahowah was in. We only have one tool. And that tool is evidence presented to reasonable people. They can't think. They've been indoctrinated to the point they can't think. And what's happened with this online culture is that kids don't know how to relate to one another again. They don't even know how to date.
Nope.
That's why they have that incel, involuntary incel, involuntary celibate.
Yeah.
They want girls, but they don't know how to interact with girls, so they blame girls.
And then girls are turning into
yes.
call girls.
Yes. Right.
It's bizarre.
So
Really?
they have no clue as to how to interact with people
Or each other.
and each other, and so they live in a social world, and this social world in places like Discord, particularly where the gamers hang out, the games are already inverted reality, anti-real, and there is no morality in the games.
Nope.
And there's lots of hatred that is stirred up in those games. And you have all these gamers that are communicating with one another. And then you have all their other little online unreal worlds, furries themselves. This kid was a furry. My guess is that, Kevin, you think a furry is a guy with a big beard, but that's not what a furry is. And Kirk, I'm not going to even embarrass you.
Don't, please don't.
Because there is a 0% chance that you know what a furry is.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I know what a furry is.
Leia knows what a furry
you
is.
read more than I do.
I lived in Miami Beach. I know what a furry is.
Yeah, furry is a subculture of young people.
Yeah, it's weird.
That dress up and they have like kind of more pretend and bizarre sex.
It's sex parties with animal costumes.
That is, yes. But they go more than just costumes.
Yeah.
So it is a very strange form of bestiality.
My God.
Fake bestiality, yeah.
Fake
It's a persona.
bestiality.
Yeah,
fake
it's
bestiality.
bizarre.
Yeah, it's not even real bestiality. I mean, that's how screwed up they are. It's not even real bestiality. It's fake bestiality. And so you got this kid that is really confused. I mean, he came out of a really whacked out religion.
Yeah.
Mormonism? Oh my God.
He
yes.
came out of a really whacked out political cult in MAGA. And he went into the unreal world of video games. Everybody that he hung around with, his entire group were gamers.
Oh God.
And rather than plugging into the world and doing something, they spend all of their time either in these games or talking to other gamers. And then you have all of the little subcultures like incels and furries. And this is where the kid was. And so what I'm saying is he is the kid next door.
Yeah, social media.
He is every kid.
Social media is very
That is where we are. We can't, and the damage is done. Marxist indoctrination has rendered 2 generations incapable of thinking. They'll believe anything you tell them, so long as and that won't work for us because we don't want believers.
Ew.
Right.
So my people are destroyed for lack of knowing. Well, he is talking about the whole world today. He's talking about every religious person, every political person, and everybody that's under the age of 35 or 40. I'm sorry, but that is where we are.
Ignorance is not a bad thing. Ignorance is not a bad thing. If you don't do anything to correct the ignorance, that's a bad thing. There are things I don't know. Okay.
No, ignorance is always a bad thing.
It's dangerous.
Ignorance is fixable. You can fix ignorance. You can't fix irrational.
No, listen, our minds, our conscience minds, and our conscious as in our sense of our morality, right and wrong, they run on information and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment without information is useless.
Sure.
Information without judgment is where the world is right now. It has lots of information. It has no judgment. And that's exceedingly dangerous. So you could say that having information, but not being able to process it intelligently, which is where the world is now, the religious and the political world and the young world is there. They have information. They can't process it. It couldn't make an intelligent decision if their life depended on it. So that's lethal. But if you have judgment, but you have no information, you're dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And so you have to have both. It's you need to know what's true, what's good, what's reliable, what's important, particularly pursuant to God. And then you must be able to process that information in an intelligent way. And religion precludes you from doing that. It absolutely, there is no religious person on earth that can process information intelligently. I mean, we're dealing with them all the time on social media. I've dealt with them all the time because of all the talk radio shows that I have done where they've called in, and all of the emails that I have answered over the time, this period. I can tell you that God himself cannot win an argument with a religious person.
So true.
Okay? They will always resort to spewing their religion and the ad hominem argument. That's all they've got. And they have never, you will never once, not in the history of humankind, will you convince a religious person that their religion is wrong.
Rational,
Not ever.
Not
religious
ever.
people.
Not
If they did,
ever.
there'd be no religious people.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
And so the same thing is true with the overtly political person.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
MAGAs are as lost in a world of stupid, of the inability to reason as are the overtly religious.
MAGA Nation.
So now you're looking at, the
Yeah.
Nick Fuentes and the Candace Owens and the Tuckers and the Charlie Kirks.
Yep.
They were players in two realms where nobody thinks: religion and politics, spewing lies.
Talking heads.
And they're now Kirk is being turned into some kind of a hero or saint. And no, he misled everybody that listened to him. So you have this ongoing problem. And then you have Marxists today would be well over 1 billion people, probably 2 billion, who aren't smart enough to know that Marxism is not only counterproductive, but that it has never worked. And that collectivization brings out the worst in humankind. But that the people that they call their enemies, the fascists, were actually Marxists.
Of course they were.
Hitler was a Marxist.
Sure.
The Marxists collectively have killed 200 million people in the last 100 years. It's the most vicious, deplorable, destructive, dehumanizing force on earth today is Marxism. Over time, the most destructive force on earth has been Islam.
All right.
And now you got Marxists and Muslims together
Holding hands.
because neither of them can think, because they only have one thing in common: a hatred of Jews. But they have nothing else in common. Well, they both are violent.
Guess who's more vicious?
The Marxists or the Muslims? I think the Muslims are more vicious than the Marxists. But of the last 100 years, the Marxists have killed far more people than the Muslims have. The Muslims still hold the high score at about 300 million. But the Marxists have killed 200 million in the last 100 years. Far more than the Muslims. But they are together. And the world doesn't understand the consequence of them being together. What brought them together and what's going to happen as a result of them being together.
Wait a minute. Aren't they cheering them on? The world is cheering them on.
No, the world's not cheering them on. There are lots of Marxists in positions of power, and there are lots of young people who are Marxists. The indoctrination of our youth has been through Marxist education.
Mm-hmm.
And it has rendered an entire generation just utterly stupid. They are a liability to themselves and to the world. Now, I'm complaining about this because my job, our job, is to awaken people to some fundamental truths: that Yahweh is God, and that Yahweh is God's one and only name. That Dode is God's beloved son, that he is our former and returning king, that he is a great prophet. He was the Messiah, and he is our Savior. He's the one that filled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, which means Jesus never existed. And that Allah is not God, and that Muhammad was not a prophet. And that the covenant has 5 conditions. The first of them is you can't be part of it until you distance yourself from the Babel of religion and politics. And so all those people that are considered good, and they're in little heavens, they've got Charlie now in his little glow, and he's up there in the clouds
Little
with
halo.
his American flag and his MAGA hat, and he's up there with the heavenly host. No, if you're overtly political or religious, you are excluded from heaven. No. And when you promote religion and politics, as he does, you actually get a ticket to the other place.
You know where.
So my complaint is, and I've waged this a number of times with Yahowah recently, and he says, okay, yeah, so I agree, it's true. What does it change? Which is that young people have been indoctrinated outside of the realm of reason. They cannot process words. They're incapable of processing evidence and reason. And the religious are as well. Marxists are as well.
What is a realistic
as well? And Israel hasn't listened in 3,400 years. So, God, please tell me, how do we achieve this? How do we prevail in this situation, God? When the audience, the potential audience,
so tiny.
So, God has revealed that we do prevail. Now, that may be because he has low expectations because he's been in this battle. He is where we are. I mean, he was where we are. He is not now. But he was where we are, and I guess he is where we are now because of the seven spirits of Yahowah. But the fact of the matter is, he tried with Israel, and God himself failed. Not because of God, but because of Israel. And Moshe failed. Not because of Moshe, because of Israel. Mm-hmm. And Dod failed. And the great prophet Yashayah failed. This did all of them. And so I routinely, I'll go to God and say, wait a minute, they all failed, God. You know that. And Israel hasn't changed. How in the world are we going to succeed? And in this case, we only have 8 years left. And we only have 20 months left to the Shabbat harvest. Mm-hmm. So when we speak boldly and bluntly, when I tell you Israel, it's over. Now, the only chance you have as a Israelite right now, or a Jew, is to accept Yahweh's name, to embrace the truth about his son, to recognize that religion, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is a blight on humanity, that Marxism has been a disgusting blight on humanity, as are the Marxists, that Donald Trump ain't your friend, and that Israel has committed suicide. And so if you want to be part of the covenant, there are 5 conditions you must meet them. You need to start attending the Moed Mikre intelligently, and that means you better not be celebrating Rosh Hashanah. You better not be twirling chickens over your head or think that Kippurim is you would say Kippur because you don't know it's Kippurim. Uh-huh. That you think it's a day of punishing yourself and being remorseful. It's a day of reconciliation. It's a great, joyous day when celebrated correctly. And you think that, I haven't a clue how you're going to celebrate Sukkah, except you got the 4 species. And
we make a big deal out of that.
What is the etrog? Isn't that
yes.
the Rabbi Full Employment Act?
Yeah.
Let's find the ugliest damn piece of fruit that's the most useless piece of crap in the world, and we'll charge people thousands of dollars for them and tell them, you need to have a really fancy one if you're going to impress God. That's right. I can't say God. Hashem. Mm-hmm. G-D. Adonai. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I have no clue what happens on Sukkah, when it's going to be celebrated, why God is eliminating all the religious people on earth, why he brought Eliyahu back, who's most famous for eradicating the religious and political establishment of Israel, and that's the guy he's bringing back.
He's a good picker.
Think it through, man. That was the guy that mocked the religious and the political, and wiped them all out. There wasn't any political or religious leader left when he was through.
Right.
And he was serving God, and God said, "That's my guy. He's doing what I want." And you're going to parade around and pretend that religion is the answer when the guy that God said, "That's my guy," he was eradicated the religious and the political influences in Israel. No.
Mm-hmm.
You invite him for Passover dinner, huh?
And not serving lamb. And not serving
Flip
lamb.
the table on you.
Yeah,
Give him a bone.
it's just totally astonishing. They could be that foolish. God tells you, oh, by the way, my Messiah is David. And so what are Jews doing? They're stymied, just frozen in time, waiting for a Messiah to arrive that is going to save them, and they have got no clue who it is. You didn't bother to ask Yahweh who it is?
Oh, wait, I thought we had a Messiah, Bar Kokhba.
Oh, that's where you get your star.
Mm-hmm.
Israel, you need to have an appreciation for the fact that your most lethal enemy today is Islam. And I have written these 5 volumes. This is the 5th of 5 volumes to tell you how to defeat Islam using words. Don't need to drop a single bomb. You can embarrass Islam out of existence if you speak effectively about Islam. You stop talking about Palestinians. You stop talking about Hamas.
Or Hezbollah, or the Houthis.
Or anybody, or the Houthis, and you address what they are. They are Muslims, Islamic terror. You start addressing Islam using Yahweh's name against Allahu Akbar, and you'll prevail. But guess who created Islam? Because the answer is not Muhammad.
No.
Muhammad wasn't a prophet. Muhammad never heard boo from a god. Not one word. How did Muhammad create the Quran and leave a legacy as an absolute retrograde? Muhammad was a pedophile. When he was 66, he climbed in bed with a 6-year-old girl. Not just a 6-year-old girl, his best friend's 6-year-old girl. He had multiple sex slaves. Every time he attacked a Jewish community and killed a woman's husband, killed a woman's father, killed a woman's sons, sold the children into slavery, he raped the surviving women. He was a slave trader. He was incestuous. He was a rapist. He was a mass murderer. So how did a man of such ill repute, he was even illiterate, for crying out loud. How did a man like this come up with a Quran that talks about Adam and talks about Abraham and talks about David and talks about, it's even got Jesus, although his name is Esau, because he didn't know what his actual name was. And he was a myth anyway. How did Muhammad come up with hundreds and hundreds of stories about the characters in the Torah and prophets, particularly the characters in the Torah?
The rabbi sold them stories.
100%.
And then before he paid him, he killed him.
So Muhammad bought Talmud readings, Babylonian Talmud readings from the rabbis and Yathrib, and he attributed those
word for word.
Some are word for word, like the story of the hoopy bird and the talking ants. That's word for word. The story of the whole story devoted to David, where he learns to communicate with birds, and he goes on some escapade. That's word for word. And the line that is the most peaceful line in the Quran: if you kill one person, it's as if you killed all mankind. It's word for word. There are some that are word for word. Some of the dumbest. The story about Abraham taking the axe and destroying all of the idols except the big one, and then claiming that the big one did the damage. That all these things come right out of the Talmud.
Yep.
And some of them are word for word. But most of them, Muhammad twisted. The stories of Moshe, for example, He twisted them to serve his putrid agenda and his own situation. And then when the rabbis laughed at him for attributing what they had sold to him and his twisted versions of it that made no sense, and he attributed them to Allah when it was the rabbis that had provided them, they laughed at him, they mocked him. And so what does a psychopath do when his whole mantra is based upon you keeping quiet so he can pretend that he's a messenger of God, and he owes you a bunch of money and you don't have the money to pay him, and you're mocking him? What does a psychopath do?
I kill you.
I kill you. Exactly.
Yeah, and he killed all of the Jews in the region.
Yes,
Robbed
he
them,
did.
Killed them, raped them, enslaved
Pillaged
them. That's what he did. That's the birth of Islam.
Mhm.
Rabbis created the Quran and therefore the religion of Islam. And look at the consequence to the Jewish people, and they won't hold the damn rabbis accountable.
Nope.
And you can say, well, that's, maybe just one thing. Well, how did the diaspora start?
Rabbis.
Rabbi Akiba, the father of rabbinic Judaism, he foisted a false Messiah on the Jewish people in 133, knowing that, they had missed it in 33 CE, which was the actual year. So he came up with a false Messiah to combat the Christians and their false Messiah. And they led an uprising, and Rome came in and just creamed Israel and crucified hundreds of thousands of people and led them all off into slavery. That was the rabbis. And, who was it that caused the infighting when Rome came with Vespasian and Titus under the orders of Nero?
Religious leaders.
Rabbis, religious leaders that were fighting with one another for supremacy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Romans came to put down that revolt. Now, the Romans were disgusting, and they robbed the treasury and of the temple, and they were obnoxious. They were treated everybody horribly. But it was the religious establishment in Israel that taunted them, which is why the Jews got the brunt of Rome worse than anybody else on the planet. And so you created the diaspora. Your religion created the diaspora, created the star that you were persecuted under, that you now parade under, not recognizing, I guess, that was the star that you were sent to the death camps to die with. And that was the star of Bar Kokhba, the son of a star.
It blows me away.
It just blows me away that you would choose that. So
Paul was the greatest of the rabbis.
Yeah, then Paul.
Yeah, he got his story too.
You trained Paul as a rabbi. He claims to be a rabbi. He's the first person to ever use the term rabbi, and he claims to be the best of the rabbis.
Under Gamaliel.
And what he does in the first 14 letters of the Christian New Testament, he uses the rabbi strategy to misquote God, to take what God said out of context, to twist it, to create the opposite impression, and to create some kind of a stupid myth. Because what the rabbis hated Dode. The rabbis have always hated Dode. And so it was no problem with the rabbis of Paul creating a false Messiah by robbing Dode. And they taught him how to do that. And that's how he created the Christian New Testament. Rabbis created Christianity. And what happened to Jews? They were persecuted for 1,800 years. Christian New Testament demonizes Jews, dehumanizes Jews. When I hear these Christians say, as a Christian, we need to stand up for Israel. No, you don't. Your Christian New Testament claims that Jews killed your Jesus. You dehumanize them. You demonize them. No. So they created Christianity. They created Judaism and caused the diaspora, leading to the Holocaust, and they created Islam. And they're precluding you from knowing Yahweh. They won't say his name. They'll mock you if you use his name. And everything they say about God is a lie. Everything they say about God is a lie. And so where are we, Israel? Why do you continue to be part of a culture controlled by people who are robbing you of your soul and robbing you of your wallet? And why do you trust the likes of Netanyahu, who has destroyed the country beyond repair? So this is a tough audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And every time I go to Yahweh and say, I'm not Moshe, and Moshe failed, and you were with him really essentially every step of the way, and still he failed. And I'm not Dode. I'm not your firstborn son. I'm not a Messiah. I'm not king. I don't have his intellect. And he gave up too. Yahshua was in tears that he could not achieve what he wanted. Shamuel came to Yahweh broken. Say, I've
let you down.
Yeah, I've let you down. It's universal. And it's not any of their faults. It's the fault of the people that they're trying to reach. And they've grown worse, not better. And, the only answer I ever get back from Yahweh is, well, one or two. I've never infused anybody with my 7 spirits before. And number 2, I've told you that you prevail. Now, the reason that you can prevail is because you stick with it. And this idea that, God told us we prevail. Well, good, let's go take a party. And, I haven't played golf in
Years.
5, 6, 7 years. So let's go play a round of golf, right? Let's go for a boat ride. I haven't gone on a boat ride forever. Let's just get off the island. Nope. We prevail because
We won't quit.
We stick to the game.
we're steadfast. We're devoted. We're committed. All of us. And I guess that's really all God needed in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
As my friend Kirk would say, you got to have the want to. If you got the want to, the rest comes along. It comes back down to, while aptitude helps, and clearly we all have aptitude. We all have our unique contributions in terms of aptitude. But that's not the thing that is making this work. It's attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a great, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So is there a great rush at the end because of the pressure is what I've always figured is when of course we're going to do a lot.
Yeah, what I think happens, Kirk, is that Shabuah is going to be whatever it is. We're going to continue to do our best. We got 20 months to convey the message. We know that there's going to be hundreds, if not 1,000 people, and we're hoping that the number is better than that. But God's not really concerned about the number. If he just had us, he would be thrilled. And those who are actively participating, so if you took the top 100 to 200 people, he'd be delighted. God would view that as a tremendous success. And if it turns out to be thousands, wonderful. But God's not going to be disappointed by not having tens of thousands of souls that capitalize on Shabuah. He's going to be delighted with the people that he has. He'd be delighted with this group right here. That's just who he is. That's how he operates.
He was happy with just Adam.
Yeah.
True.
Correct. So Shabuah will be whatever Shabuah is. We're going to continue to be as effective as we'll manage the things like what you're doing with the YouTube channels, and then having others work underneath you for other YouTube channels and collaborate with you on other YouTube channels. And I'll continue to do what I can on Facebook and on X, and we have other places where we're communicating this message, and we'll soon start working more effectively in TikTok and Instagram. We're going to do whatever we can, because this blog without the social media doesn't reach people.
Right.
You have to involve, as much as I view social media as the swamp of anti-Semitism and of despair and of lies, this blog, which is a bright spot in it, doesn't function without the audience that they provide. So they go hand in hand. That's when Yahowah said, this is what I want you to do. That was the marching orders. I want you to share the Yahowah blog in social media. And we're doing that not as well as we could and not as well as we will, but we're doing it a lot better than we have. And we're getting better and better at it. And so, we're going to see that part through. And then when we come back on Passover and 2030, at that time, we're playing with functioning at a much higher level.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a much higher level. I mean, I have fun every day, and Leigh and I'll talk, Rich and I'll talk. I'll study Yah's testimony, and we'll come to another understanding, another fun insight as to how the whole picture comes together. But can you imagine after 3 years with Yahowah, with Dode, with Yahshua, with Moshe,
With the Torah written
with the
inside
Torah
you?
literally imprinted inside of us, and you get to go up to Yahowah and say, okay, listen, I know we have 3 years, but 3 years in the seventh dimension can be 3 billion years. So you got a lot of time to equip us to be really smart. So, okay, let's begin with, what did I get wrong? So let's clean away the memory slates of anything that I got wrong along the way. And he's not going to have a problem with that. He's, that was the whole purpose. Is I wanted you to show that with the information I already provided, that it was possible with diligence and effort and thinking that you could come to all of these conclusions and be able to present this whole picture and do so enthusiastically and confidently and powerfully. And you did those things. And you showed that with effort, with genuine work and diligence, you could understand.
Right.
So that's exceedingly powerful. So when I say, God, I want you to tell me what I got wrong, it's going to be, first thing I expect is a hand around the shoulder and say, kid, you did good.
Right.
And I think he's going to say that to all of us. Hey, you're good. I'm going to tell you the things that you goofed on because you've asked, but you don't need to worry about that. We'll work that through. Okay. The next thing is, all right, now this is going to be a big one now. What did I miss?
Yeah.
And I expect at that point, a laugh and to say, for me to share everything that you missed is going to take the next 100 billion years.
We don't have that kind of time.
We don't have that kind of time. And there's not one of those people down there that you're going to try to reach that's going to resonate with anyway.
Right.
So let's.
We'll cover that later.
And I don't think at this point we've missed anything that's really germane to the story. So I don't think that's going to be a very long conversation. I just think I think what you missed is life going forward. This is our relationship going forward. And so don't let me cheat you or me or us or anyone else of the joy of learning along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think that's going to be a brief one. Okay. So you're going to come back and, we're all pretty comfortable in our relationship with Yahowah. Mm-hmm. Very confident, very comfortable. But imagine the level of confidence and comfort when you've spent 3 years side by side with Yahowah and with Dode and with Moshe and with Yahshua and the likes. And it's going to be an entirely different level of confidence. And then you're not going to have to, like I have a computer. The last 3 shows we haven't looked at it, but I do have a computer here that has a text of the passages that I share. I'm certainly not going to need that, am I?
Right.
No, it's here.
No. Yeah, it's all of it. Yes. And we're going to be partnered with Elia, the most entertaining orator of all time. And Yahowah during this whole time is going to be putting on a show above us. He's going to take the 2 tablets with the 10 statements, and he's going to raise them up for everybody to see. He's going to make us impervious. So they'll shoot RPGs at us, and they'll shoot all manner of missiles at us, and they will do everything they can to kill us. And it's just going to come on, stop it already. You're just nothing but an irritant. And they'll try to debate us. Well, that won't go very well, so they'll stop doing that in a real hurry. But we're going to be able to understand every language, speak in every language, and God's going to have this scroll that's playing above us that'll have the YAHOWAH blog on it. It'll have our books on it. It'll going to have statements that God had written and that we can expound upon. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty amazing sight,
Okay.
and everybody in the world's going to be able to see it. There will be live cameras trained on that all the time. The Dome of the Hoofy print and the Oscar Mosque gone, obliterated. A replica of the tent of the Restoring Witness is going to be there. And this guy, Elia, I mean, talk about credibility. Coming back from after 2,888 years, that's some serious credibility there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at that level, with Israel's backs up against the wall, we are going to resonate. This message is going to resonate with a goodly number of people. So I would be stunned if there weren't at least 7,000 Jews that participate in the Towrah gleaning. Be stunned. I mean, how could you overlook that?
Yeah.
A lot of shooting going on.
Yeah, we're going to be the two most famous people in the world, conveying the most powerful message in the world, and obviously supported by the Creator God of the universe. And we're going to be super. You can't say superhuman because we're essentially 7-dimensional beings. They're projected in a 3-dimensional construct.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's stunning. And then come the Towrah harvest, which is this final remnant, which is what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
When I had a discussion with Leah this morning on this, and there are two possibilities. I'm still leaning towards my original interpretation, and we'll do more study and tune this, and it's not essential that we know the detail of it now.
Right.
But when you study the sacrifice that leads to the restoration of Israel, of the Yada Yahowah, and there it's the greatest show on earth. God's releasing torrents of water from the Temple Mount. He is igniting the flames that soar underneath the sacrifice of the Yada Yahowah. His booming voice is going to come out of heaven. It's going to be orchestrated by Elia, and this is exactly what he did 2,888 years prior. And then he's going to have obliterated every assailant, every Muslim, every Christian, every Marxist that has come to harm Jews. They're all obliterated. And then he's transforming the earth back into conditions of Eden. And then he's had these 2 chariots that have brought all of those who could potentially be receptive to Yahweh's message into Jerusalem after he's had this stream of light go to heaven with the fulfillment of the gleaning of Towrah the night before. So you're going to have God bring in every person from around the world, both Goyim and Yisraelite, into Israel, and he's going to put on the greatest show in the history of humankind and the universe with what he's doing. And then there's this Numbers 5 portion that is has the ash of the Yada Yahowah, from a little blood of it mixed to the Yada Yahowah in there, lots of water, and this remnant drinks this. And if they're salvageable, they have a attitude such that they can be reliable going forward, and they're teachable, so they're going to go into the millennial Shabbat. And if those people who are not overtly political and religious, and that's why they were brought in, drink it and die, that means that, that was the way that God's going about saying, you had been a waste of time. You'd been counterproductive. We just don't want to deal with you now. So you're gone. So you're going to have enormous numbers of people, I think, at that point. I'd be surprised if we were dealing with less than 70,000. And I guess I wouldn't even be surprised if we were when you're dealing with the entire world, it could be 700,000, because it's only at that point you're going to have 1/3 of the Israelites who have survived. That's 5 million. And if half of them are still super political and religious, then that's still 2.5 million that could potentially be there for God to determine on this formula that he has conceived whether or not they can be reliable or not going in. So, what 700,000 is not out of the picture, is it?
It's close to what left Metzraim.
Yeah. And you're also going to have, it is. Exactly.
Yeah, very good.
Very similar number. And you're also going to have, and they're going back into the promised land, because Sukkah is the return to Eden, which is the promised land. And then you're going to have Goyim. Now, the Goyim are going to be the workers, but these workers are going to be very special people. And you could have an equal number of them.
Yeah.
So I think that it doesn't really matter how successful we are on Shabuah, and how many people that we would have thought would have been Shabuah that have done a crash and burn and have goodbye.
Right. Yeah. Whoops. Yeah.
I don't think that matters. I mean, it's so long as we hang together and we continue to do the right thing for the right reason, we continue to learn, we continue to share, we continue to speak out on behalf of Israel and to Goyim, and we don't give up just because they're obnoxious. We continue to speak out regardless of their attitude. Then Shabuah is going to do what Yahweh wants, because quite frankly, with Shabuah, we are 100% dependent upon Yahweh and Dod.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you can't participate in Shabuah unless you've capitalized on what Dod did in Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim.
Right.
Unless you know the terms and conditions of the covenant, that you know that Dod is the exemplar and the enabler of the covenant, and unless you know Yahweh's name. And if you don't know those things, you cannot participate in Shabuah. So we are harvesting a group, cultivating this harvest based solely on what God and Dod have already achieved. So our job there is just to do what I think is the greatest discovery in human history, to tell the world, there was no Jesus, that Dod David is the Messiah, he is the Son of God, he is the King, and he is the one who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, Bikurim, and he was the one crucified in 33 CE. And if you accept what he did and you understand that Pesach provides life, Matzah is the day that your guilt is removed, and that therefore the Bukor, firstborn of God, enabled Bikurim, the firstborn children, as a result, then you can capitalize on Shabuah. So we're totally dependent on that. And that's a really good place to be in. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a really good place to be.
The best ROI.
Yeah, that's really good. It doesn't get any better than that. But also, I'm really not aware of anyone that we have brought into the covenant family because they were wowed by my oratory or writing, or what you guys have done on your websites. I think that God's manner of operation in this regard is as it once was, that he introduces himself to people he's interested in knowing. And that's how I found him. He introduced himself to me. I didn't know him. You first have to give up on religion and politics and show an interest in who he is. And if he finds you interesting, he's going to find a way to get you introduced to what you need to know to capitalize on this relationship. So to a very large extent, we're in a position where it's essential for us to recognize that that the introduction still has to be made by God.
Yeah.
And so he's going to choose the people he wants to spend eternity with, that he thinks have the right attitude and aptitude. And he's going to then find a way to introduce them to us. And we're going to be more than prepared to share what they need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, Shabuah is a product of what Yahweh and Dode have already achieved and what Yahweh desires. I don't think can be understated how Yahweh is in a position now that when he introduces someone or introduces himself to someone, between these 35 books that we have written under the Yada Yahowah name that are positioned on that bookshelf at YAHOWAH.com. And by the way, the 9th volume of the Yada Yahowah series is now available on the YAHOWAH.com website. Every book's free. There is no time that we've had this much information, this accurately and completely presented. And so that has never existed in all of human history. So if Yahweh makes an introduction, there is immediate access to that, which you need to know to capitalize on it, right? Now, beyond that, because today the most effective communication medium is these vlogs, by far and away. What we're doing now is the single most effective way to communicate. And it can be distributed on every smartphone and every computer and every tablet and every laptop and every television in the world. And even people that speak different languages can have it translated for them.
Yes.
There has never been any time whereas the prophecy that Solomon revealed about the Nachri, it's going to come right out of the sky and you're going to be able to listen to it. And when you listen, you need to pay attention and then do as he requests. That's the means to salvation. So God now has these tools that he can use. You know, if we were to go away tomorrow, the tools are there. God can introduce himself to anyone and they can come to know him based upon his teaching because we have done that job. So I think that maybe the answer really is we've already done what he asked. We'll keep on doing it, but we have done as he asked. And so he is now able to make Shabuah whatever he wants it to be. And then on Teruah, we know that, you know, how extraordinary he's going to be through Elia and through all of the things that is going to happen during that 3.5 years of witness. And then we know what's going to happen as a result of that on Teruah that's going to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
And then the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah is otherworldly. It is now we've entered the realm of full interaction with God. And people brought in from around the world.
Right.
So I don't think we have to worry much about that either, do we? Well, we just stick to it. We continue to do what we do. We do it as well as we can. We enjoy the process as much as we can along the way. And don't fret it and don't let them get to us. And have the courage to tell Israel, this is the place you're in. Now, you said something, Kirk, and by the way, we've done this whole show on the passage behind you, JB, so thank you very much.
Wasn't my intention, but it's been a good show.
It worked out just fine. My people are destroyed for lack of knowing.
Lack of knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, Hosea.
Great hitting.
Yeah, 6:4. And the 4:6. The reason it's so important is that Yahweh also says that because you've forgotten my Torah, I've forgotten your children. Therefore, if you want your children to be part of the covenant family, you need to go back to the Torah, and that is not, the Talmud is not a Torah. And that means you can't be a Christian because the Christianity is anti-Torah.
Yeah.
You certainly can't be a Muslim. So we are in a position where we can celebrate everything that Yahweh conveyed in the book of Numbers. It's all prophetic of exactly what we're experiencing now. And we can be the living embodiment of Hosea, the entire book, where God told Hosea to marry a temple prostitute because he wanted Hosea to empathize with him and know exactly where we stand. Now we have Rich. He is so clever. He has now managed to put up a clock. This is really clever on the screen, so that I know that we have been broadcasting for 1 hour, 55 minutes and 39 seconds, which is, he's telling me that you have 4 minutes to wrap this up, is what he's doing. And he's grinning. He is grinning now from ear to ear. So pleased with himself on figuring out how to provide this.
Does Rich have a hot Shabbat date? What's going on?
He also has the number of live viewers on Facebook. Sometime you'll figure out how to do it also on YouTube, my guess is. But that is where we are.
There he is.
And so when you recognize that we're the living embodiment right now of Hosea, and Hosea says, "I'm divorcing you because you've been religious," and we know that that the sacrifice in Numbers 19 of the Adam of Torah is for the cleansing of this woman that represents Israel that has been religious, and Numbers 5, and that this is the solution because God says, "I'm divorcing you, but I will return to you when you return to me." And this is the call back home. So we're the living embodiment of Hosea. We are, it's like we're living in the midst of Yeshaya's prophecy on how to be a choder and how to interact with the choder. His textbooks on proper chodering. We're living in the midst of almost everything that he wrote. Rich and I will talk routinely. We'll talk about, I just translate this, and it's just mind-boggling how every time we turn around, God has made a historical event, a prophecy of exactly what we're doing now and how to do it as well as we can. And so that's where we are, and our job is to convey the message and do so as well as we can. Our job isn't to convince anyone. And I think we're doing it as well as Yahweh had anticipated. So I want to thank you, particularly if you're listening well into the evening, actually early morning hours in Israel, and throughout the United States and into Europe. We appreciate this time. We hope that you consider what we're sharing with you if you're not yet part of Yahweh's covenant family. And if you are part of the covenant family, I want to encourage you to do as we talked earlier in the week, which is it's time that everyone accept responsibility. We're in a family, and in this family, everyone has chores. And we're going to have chores forevermore.
Good.
God likes it when we're working together. And quite frankly, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you that being part of this and working together is much more fun than it ever was independently. And we get to work with God. Yeah. At the end of the day, can you imagine anything better than God says, I think you did a good job.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with what you did. Thank you.
That's an attaboy.
That's pretty good.
Kind of an attaboy. That I think that could last like 1 trillion years, right?
Yeah.
Before that would get old.
Yeah.
So please, if you're part of the covenant family, engage. There's so much to do, particularly on all the social media platforms. There's so much to do. And we need your help. God needs your help. Israel needs your help. Goyim needs your help. We cannot be drowned out by the billions of voices saying otherwise. So thank you all very much for being part of this, and everyone for listening. May Yah bless. You have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Good night.
Hey, y'all.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.